2. Hey, we are here right after session with Representative Judd Matheny. Are you getting a little verklempt about this being your last session?
No. No, the great thing is I get to leave on my own terms. I was fortunate voters sent me up here for 8 terms, and of course I'm looking at a chance to be the next U.S. Congressman for the 6th District. I think I'm very qualified to do that, so I'm looking forward to doing that. We're putting a lot of effort into that. And I've had a great time up here for 16 years, and I have seen so many things and been part of so many things. It's been wonderful. But it is time for me to move on to different things, and I'm very satisfied with that decision. And I am glad we're here in our new offices today in the Cordell Hall building, so normally I never get a new office, but this is the first time in my life I've gotten a new office.
This is sweet.
We did anybody that hasn't been to the Cordell Hall building, come and look at our new legislative offices, new hearing rooms, conference rooms, cafeteria. You can, if you're a carry permit holder, you can carry your weapon in this building, which is a great improvement for us. And so we're very excited to be here in this new building. And a little story there, about 5 years ago, myself and 4 other legislators kept this building from being demolished. Now here we are with it completely renovated, and the entire House and Senate's in here. So you never know what kind of things are going to happen in your legislative career.
Now, over the years, real quick, what do you think are the crowning achievements that you feel that you've contributed?
I think it's if you look at on economic policy issues, it's definitely unemployment insurance and some things that I did back in the 2010, 2011 that kept us from going into debt with the federal government. That was one of my hallmark issues on economic issues. Another one was workers' compensation reform, where I put myself and Representative Charlie Curtis worked very hard, and we put an exemption in for sole proprietors not to have workers' compensation insurance, and that saved about 100,000 jobs in Tennessee, according to the registry that we have right now. That number of people have gone into business that would not have, because they don't have to go through that additional expense. So things like that have really moved the needle over my career. Terrorism issues, working on identifying Islamic threats and educating people about those has definitely been a hallmark issue, and it's one that is not done. It will never be done. The Islamic threat is real, it is here, and have to continue to pursue options to repel it, and that's been another major issue. I'm sure if I brought my assistant in here and we brought out all our files, I could bring up 100 different things. But and firearms issues, I feel like I've been one of the strongest, if not the strongest, advocate for the Second Amendment, bar none up here, whether it's from passing gun legislation or defeating anti-gun legislation to holding 10 different machine gun shoots and educating the entire General Assembly about the functionality of firearms and the fun side that you can have. And it really is not just the war side and the defense side, but there's a good sporting side that we all like to take advantage of, and we like to educate about that. So done a whole lot of that, for sure.
Okay, so 2018, your last session. Any goals?
Yes, I've got several bills this year. Most of them are in the healthcare field. The last 3 years of my legislative career, I've started looking at the number of senior citizens that are moving into Tennessee and really coming online across the nation. And Michelle, it's incredible. There's 11,000 people a day, every day, coming online. And I have some bills that help with treatment procedures for disabled and seniors that TennCare doesn't cover now that Medicare and Medicaid do, and I want to be able to bridge that gap. I also have some legislation that works on the prompt payment process for providers, TennCare providers, and insurance providers that are paid by the federal government, to make sure that they're paid with predictability. Because one thing we have to do is as all these seniors come here and our health care needs even increase, our providers have to know that they're going to be paid, so that they'll set up the infrastructure to come here. And we're 1 million nurses short now for what's coming, and we have to build the infrastructure for that. And that's not counting the beds that we need, and the recreational facilities and the nutritional facilities, and it's a lot of work to be done. So that's going to be one of the biggest things I do when I get to Congress. Not only work on military and self-defense issues, but it's work on the domestic issues of our aging population too.
Okay, so you see that as like the big priority.
I do, and that's what's attracted me. I see it as a strategic flaw in this country that we're not taking care of our seniors. And by taking care of our seniors, in that same net, we're going to pick up a lot of disabled and a lot of veterans that are being looked over for whatever reason that we've not been able to get to them yet. So that's a big issue of mine, yes.
Well, one of the big things, you were in drug enforcement back in the day. One of the big issues that I've been hearing about from the other legislators is the opioid crisis. What do you say about that?
Well, it is definitely a crisis, and we are beginning to turn the tide. I passed the Prescription Drug Database Act in 2013, which made it compulsory for doctors to check a database before they provided a benzodiazepine or an opioid prescription. And that cut our opioid scripts, believe it or not, it cut them by about 15%. But there's still so many out there that it hasn't really made a dent in the problem. That's how acute this issue is. So I support our Attorney General signing on with other states to look at how pharmaceutical companies have marketed opioids, and I also look for this General Assembly to put together, well, we already have a task force that looks at opioid abuse. Now I look for us to put some money and some action in place this session. We really need money in treatment programs, drug court programs, and rural rehabilitation programs. People that aren't insured but that are ready to accept the need to change their behavior, that have the access to do it. We cannot keep putting people in jail. And we can't keep sending people to rehab programs when they're not prepared to do it or ready to do it mentally. So we're identifying all those issues. The opioid problem is a very serious problem that deals with not only your medical community but also your law enforcement community and your entire criminal justice system, as well as mom and dad and brother and sister that are directly affected by the crisis.
Well, where do you see the medical marijuana legislation connecting with that issue?
I don't see it moving in Tennessee yet. I see it. We want to look at it in Tennessee to see if it's viable. Here's the big problem is Tennessee schedules marijuana as a Schedule 6 drug, which means it has some medical uses. The federal government schedules it as a 1, which means it has absolutely no medical uses. So therefore, no legal company can do any bona fide research that has credibility as long as the federal government has it as a Schedule 1. So I would encourage the federal government to put it as a 6 and let the states decide by doing medical treatments and doing medical testing if there is something there. And if there is, well, we've proven that there's some medical propensities for cannabis oil already, and we've passed that here, and we'll have to leave it up to the medical community to do some real research for us. But the federal government has to allow that. Right now, you can't do any research. It's functionally illegal unless you have a state that protects you like California or Oregon or somebody. But still, if you look at what our Attorney General Jeff Sessions and our President have just said, there may be a showdown coming with states such as Colorado and California and even the District of Columbia.
Okay.
So I think there's seven states, and the District of Columbia have it for recreational use. And then there's a dozen or so additional states that have it for medical use. And, of course, the federal government denies any of that's legality, so it just depends on what the federal government decides to do also.
Well, it seems like, and I've heard that the President as well as Attorney General Sessions wants the legislature to do something.
Well, that's why I say the legislature needs to change it to Schedule 6.
Right.
Because if you do that, then bona fide medical research can occur, and then you can put facts out there on the table and let them speak for themselves.
Gotcha. All right, now, real quick, I know this is your last session, and I know it's kind of like bittersweet. I know you're excited about leaving us, but you're going to be out, April?
I say April 8th or 9th.
Is that your call?
That's my call.
Because everybody's on election schedule, right?
Everybody's on election schedule. I say as soon as the March revenue figures come in, which we'll get them sometime the last week of March, we're going to pass the budget so fast.
So everything's going to be behind the budget?
Yes, everything will be behind the budget that's not already preordained. And I think it's going to move pretty fast. I don't see any huge issues this year, like Medicaid expansion or gas tax or other issues that have weighed us down in the past. But this is legislator land, so anything could happen.
Anything could happen. All right. And now you're running for, as you said, Congress.
Congress in the 6th District to replace Diane Black.
All right. How's that going?
It's going strong. We're working hard.
Any challenges?
Sure. We're going to have some, and but that's fine. Have challenges with everything politically, as you should. And actually, I think the more the better. So Bring it on. Bring it on.
Bring it on. All right, any last words for our viewers?
I appreciate you taking the time to come up here, and anybody that's watching, thank you very much. Visit me on Judd Matheny for Congress Facebook, and also Judd for Congress on my website, and donate and help us out. And I can still raise money for Congress during this legislative session.
Get out.
Yeah, so I'm for once I get my cake and I get to eat it too. So I can actually. And what I mean by is, as a state legislator, we're in a blackout from raising any money, and as it should be, because
right.
we're passing laws. But since I'm running for another office and I currently don't have direct influence over, I can still raise money for that. So I get to do this job and raise money and work for Congress at the same time, and have to do that while obviously keeping the constituents of the 47th district their needs satisfied. So it's going to be a busy spring. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we've done an excellent job. I know everyone loves you back in your district. They keep on electing you. So now there's going to be someone else filling the shoes, and hopefully you'll be a congressman for your district.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.